You know, sometimes life puts you in rooms where people look at you and only see your limits. They measure you by your past, by your setbacks, by what you didn't have and what you haven't done yet. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe that their small vision is your destiny. But can I tell you something? There is a version of you that they never saw coming. There is a strength in you that wasn't supposed to survive what you went through. And yet, here you are, still standing, still pressing, still fighting, not because it was easy, but because God whispered to your spirit, keep going. I'm not done with you yet. See, some people only applauded when you fell because they thought that was the end of your story. But what they didn't realize is that you were just gathering the pieces, collecting the lessons, building the character, preparing the comeback. And today you're about to rise in a way that's going to make every doubt look foolish, every critic silent, every whisper irrelevant. You're not just going to prove them wrong, you're going to make them wonder how they ever doubted you in the first place. Let's talk about it. Your doubt was their forecast. Your rise will be their revelation. There are moments in life when the people around you think they've got you all figured out. They think they've read every chapter, memorized every mistake, and predicted every outcome. They watch you with a quiet confidence, convinced that their assumptions about you are accurate, that their limited view of you is the whole view of you, and so they forecast your future through the lens of their doubt. They expect you to stay where you've been. They expect you to shrink under pressure, collapse under the weight of your past, or simply never rise beyond the version of you they first encountered. But what they didn't understand is that you were never living according to their expectations. You were living through purpose, through process, through divine strategy that they had no access to. People often doubt what they don't understand, and they underestimate what they can't control. They doubted you because they couldn't see the depth of your resilience or the fire burning underneath the disappointments you survived. They couldn't see how every setback was actually strengthening you, how every closed door was redirecting you, how every moment of being overlooked was developing something sharper, stronger, and more grounded inside you. They didn't know that while they were forecasting your failure, you were quietly evolving, quietly healing, quietly preparing for a version of life that required you to outgrow their narrative entirely. Their doubt was never really about you. It was about the limits of their own vision. They didn't have the capacity to perceive the greatness forming in the dark, the potential rising in the silence, the growth happening beneath the surface. They saw the surface level version of your life and mistook it for the whole story. They saw the struggle, but not the strength. They saw the hesitation, but not the courage. They saw the tear, but not the grit it took for you to wipe it and keep moving. And so they forecasted a future based on incomplete information. They assumed that because you stumbled, you wouldn't get back up. They assumed that because you hesitated, you'd never find your stride. They assumed that because you were quiet, you were defeated. But what they missed is that some seasons require silence because transformation doesn't always announce itself. You were becoming something they didn't expect. You were growing wings in a season where they thought you had lost your ability to stand. You were building momentum in moments they thought you were stuck. And now the rise that is coming, your rise, is going to shift the entire narrative because there's a moment in every journey where the revelation becomes undeniable. A moment where the same people who doubted you have to confront the reality that they were wrong about you, not because you needed their validation, but because your breakthrough makes their doubt irrelevant. Your rise is not just about success or achievement. It's about transformation so profound that it becomes visible even to those who never believed in you. It's the kind of rise that makes people stop and reassess everything they thought they knew. It's the kind of rise that forces your critics to study your steps just to figure out how you managed to do what they never imagined possible. It's the kind of rise that doesn't ask for applause, but commands respect. Because when you rise from places you weren't supposed to recover from, it changes the way people perceive what's possible. Your rise is going to reveal the truth, not just about who you are, but about who you've always been. They doubted your strength, but your rise will reveal the warrior. They doubted your potential, but your rise will reveal the visionary. They doubted your endurance, but your rise will reveal the survivor, the fighter, the unstoppable force they never noticed because they were too focused on your struggle to see your strength. And the beauty of this revelation is that it won't require you to prove anything. You won't need to argue your worth, debate your capability, or explain your journey. The rise itself becomes the evidence. The transformation becomes the testimony. The elevation becomes the answer to every doubt, spoken or unspoken. This isn't about revenge, and it isn't about proving people wrong out of spite. It's about stepping into the fullness of who you are in such a powerful way that the very existence of your progression becomes undeniable proof that their doubt never held any authority Their forecast was not your future. Their disbelief was not your limit. Their narrative was not your identity. You were shaped by something bigger, guided by something deeper, strengthened by something they never took into account. They didn't know the prayers you prayed, the battles you fought internally, the nights you cried and still woke up determined. They didn't know the dreams you carried quietly, the visions you nurtured in private, the purpose that pulled you forward. Even when circumstances tried to hold you back, your rise will be their revelation, because it will show them that the same person they counted out was actually in preparation. The same person they dismissed was developing discipline. The same person they overlooked was building character. And now, when your elevation appears, when the opportunities align, when the breakthroughs happen, when the doors open so wide that no one can deny what's happening, it will shift the atmosphere around you. Not because you need their attention, but because the glow of purpose can't be hidden once it matures. You are stepping into a season where your growth will speak louder than their assumptions. Your consistency will speak louder than their opinions. Your resilience will speak louder than their predictions. They doubted you because they saw a moment. They didn't see the journey. They judged the chapter without reading the book. And now that the story is unfolding in a direction they never anticipated, your rise will teach them something about underestimation, about misjudgment, and about the danger of counting out someone who has destiny attached to their name. Your rise will be a revelation not just to them, but even to you. There will be moments when you look at the doors opening, the strength emerging, the courage rising within you, and you'll realize that you became someone you once prayed you'd have the power to be. You'll look at where you're standing and realize that every doubt they projected onto you became a shadow that highlighted your light. Every expectation they placed on your failure became the contrast that made your success shine brighter. Every assumption they made became the backdrop for your breakthrough. Your rise is coming, not in a way that is loud or desperate for attention, but in a way that is undeniable, unshakable, then uncontainable. Their doubt was a forecast, but it was based on storms you were never meant to stay in. Your rise is the revelation that the storm was only temporary, but your strength was permanent. Their disbelief is fuel, not a limitation. When people look at you and decide without hesitation that you are incapable, unqualified, or unprepared, it can sting in a way that feels almost personal. But somewhere inside that sting is an opportunity, an ignition point that determines whether you internalize their doubt as a boundary or transform it into momentum. Their disbelief doesn't have to be the thing that stops you. It can be the very thing that energizes you. It can remind you of everything you were made to be, everything you still have left to build, and everything within you that refuses to settle for what they think is possible. Because disbelief from others is often a reflection of their relationship with their own limitations, not a reflection of your potential. They measure your capacity based on what they've seen or what they believe is predictable, but your journey was never supposed to be predictable. Your growth happens in places they never witnessed. Your strength develops in moments they never knew about. And so their disbelief is not a prophecy. It's an invitation for you to rise beyond the limits that they tried to place on your story. There is something powerful about being underestimated. It doesn't feel good, but it is powerful. When people count you out, it challenges you to look inward and decide who gets the final say over your life. Their disbelief becomes the contrast that highlights the deep truth you carry about who you are becoming. It forces you to confront whether you will allow the voices outside of you to drown out the calling inside of you. Every time someone doubts you, you are given a choice to shrink to fit their expectations or grow to honor your own purpose. Shrinking is easy, shrinking is familiar, shrinking keeps the peace. But growth disrupts the narrative. Growth requires courage. Growth demands that you walk in a direction that others may not understand. And when you choose growth, their disbelief becomes the resistance your spirit pushes against. Developing strength you could not build any other way. Fuel comes from friction. Progress comes from pressure. You don't get elevation without something pushing you off the ground. And disbelief is a kind of pressure that, when handled correctly, launches you instead of limiting you. It forces you to build discipline because you know the world isn't going to hand you validation. It forces you to be intentional because you understand that you're not simply proving a point. You're becoming someone stronger, clearer, and more grounded than you were before. Every time they say you can't, it becomes a whisper in your spirit that says, watch me, not out of spite, not out of pride, but out of a deep-rooted awareness that your journey was never meant to be confined by their comfort zones. Some people doubt you simply because they don't have the imagination to see beyond what already exists. They've only seen you in certain roles, certain seasons, certain struggles, and they assume that's where you'll stay. They don't recognize the inner work you've done. They don't see how your mindset has shifted, how your perspective has widened, how your resilience has sharpened. They don't know the internal breakthroughs you've experienced. They don't see the late nights of planning, the early mornings of prayer, the hours invested in becoming someone who can carry the future you're building. Their disbelief is based on an outdated version of you, a version that no longer exists. So when they doubt you now, you must learn to detach yourself from their limited perception. Let their disbelief roll off your shoulders and become fuel that motivates you to keep going, keep rising, keep believing in the version of yourself that you're stepping into. The greatest movements often begin in silence, before the world pays attention, before anyone believes in the vision except the one holding it. That silence can feel lonely, especially when surrounded by voices that tell you you're dreaming too big or reaching too far. But sometimes that silence is a gift. It gives you the space to build without noise, to grow without interruption, and to strengthen your foundation without the weight of other people's expectations. Their disbelief creates a vacuum where your determination becomes louder than their opinions. It shapes a mindset where you no longer seek permission to step into your purpose. You simply move forward because you know your calling didn't come from them in the first place. And while disbelief might sting, it also clarifies your circle. It reveals who is willing to walk with you and who only believed in you under conditions that benefited them. It shows you who supports your growth and who only supported your comfort. Sometimes their disbelief is the very thing that frees you from connections that would have held you back. It reminds you that your journey requires alignment, not applause. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to believe in what you're building. And when disbelief shows up, it becomes a compass that directs you toward the spaces where your dreams are nurtured, not suffocated. People often underestimate the power of someone motivated by doubt. When you've been told you're not enough, not capable, not ready, something rises inside you that refuses to be defined by the limitations of others. That stubborn fire, that quiet determination becomes the engine behind your progress. Because the truth is, most breakthroughs are born not from comfort, but from resistance. You learn to push harder. You learn to think deeper. You learn to stand even when the ground beneath you feels unstable. Their disbelief becomes the backdrop that makes your commitment shine brighter. It forces you to depend not on external support, but on internal conviction. And once you realize that their disbelief has no power unless you hand it power, everything changes. You begin to walk differently. You begin to work differently. You begin to value your vision different. You stop seeking validation from people who cannot grasp the weight of your assignment. You stop shrinking to ease their insecurity. You stop waiting for permission to evolve. Instead, you rise, not because they doubted you, but because you were destined to rise. Their disbelief simply becomes the wind behind you, pushing you upward, strengthening your resolve, reminding you that purpose doesn't need approval to be real. The more they underestimate you, the more room you have to grow beyond the boundaries they tried to set. Your comeback will speak louder than their criticism. There are seasons in life when the noise around you grows louder than your own belief. People talk, they point, they analyze your failures as if they've never had their own. They critique your decisions, your dreams, your timing, your methods, all while standing comfortably on the sidelines of your life. Criticism often comes from those who have never had the courage to try what you're trying, never had the faith to pursue what you're pursuing, never had the resilience to survive what you've survived. But in the midst of their noise, something remarkable begins to grow inside you. A quiet determination, a steady strength, a sense of purpose that doesn't beg to be understood. You realize that their criticism is temporary, but your comeback is becoming permanent, because a comeback isn't built in public. It's built in the unseen, in the disciplined hours, in the hidden work, in the moments when no one is clapping for you and no one is checking on you. It's built when the world thinks you've stopped, but inside you something is still moving, still fighting, still rising. Criticism may be loud, but it is often hollow. It holds no weight unless you choose to carry it. People will always have something to say about a story they aren't living. They will always create narratives about chapters they walked in on too late or seasons they didn't understand. What they criticize is often what they fear, because your boldness exposes their hesitation, your growth exposes their stagnation, your dreams expose their limitations. So instead of absorbing their words, you learn to let them pass through you. You begin to see criticism as a reflection of someone else's insecurity rather than a measurement of your worth. And when you stop giving their opinions authority over your identity, you make room for your comeback to take shape without interference. A comeback is born from the decision to rise again, even when rising feels impossible. It's born from choosing courage when comfort would be easier. It's born from believing that your future has more to offer than your past has to regret. Coming back doesn't mean you never fell. It means the fall didn't finish you. It means you refuse to stay buried under disappointment or shame or loss. You refuse to let failure define you. You refuse to let waiting break you. You chose resilience over retreat. That choice, quiet, internal, unseen, is what sets the stage for the comeback that will one day speak louder than every word spoken against you. People remember criticism for a moment, but they remember a comeback for a lifetime, because a comeback carries evidence of strength, evidence of endurance, evidence of transformation. When you rise, you don't rise as the same person who fell. You rise wiser, sharper, more grounded, more aligned. You rise with a deeper understanding of who you are and what you're capable of. You rise with scars that tell stories, not of defeat, but of survival. Those scars become part of your power. The very things they criticize become the very things that fuel your ascent. And when you finally step into the light of your breakthrough, it won't be your words that defend you. It will be the weight of your progress, the undeniable truth of your growth, the reality of your elevation. Your comeback speaks because it shows them what criticism could never stop. It shows them that every assumption they made was incomplete. It shows them that the low season didn't break you, it built you. It shows them that you were working while they were watching, that you were healing while they were talking, that you were growing while they were judging. A comeback is proof that the story didn't end where they thought it would. It's proof that you are bigger than the moment that tried to define you. It's proof that resilience is louder than rumor, that perseverance is louder than opinion, that destiny is louder than doubt. Critics often speak from the middle of your journey, not knowing how the story is meant to end. They criticize the rough draft of what will one day become the finished masterpiece. They speak prematurely. They assume the struggle is the conclusion. But your comeback reveals that the struggle was an introduction to strength. It reveals that the setback was a setup for something greater. It reveals that the temporary pause in your momentum was the preparation for a greater acceleration. And when the breakthrough arrives, it doesn't just elevate you, it humbles them, not because you wanted revenge, but because the truth became undeniable. You won't have to say anything. Your comeback does the talking. It speaks in the opportunities you step into, the confidence you carry, the clarity you walk with, the doors that open, the transformation you embody. It speaks in the way you show up differently, in the way you rebuild, in the way you reclaim your purpose. It speaks in the excellence you cultivate, the boundaries you set, the peace you protect, and the life you create from the lessons you survive. This kind of comeback has a voice all its own, a voice stronger than criticism, louder than doubt, and more powerful than every negative word spoken in your absence. And while they were criticizing the chapter you were living, they didn't realize you were writing a whole new book. They didn't realize you were learning, evolving, redirecting, strengthening. They didn't realize that every moment of judgment was actually fueling your desire to grow beyond the limits they tried to place on you. In many ways, their criticism pushes you to rise higher, work harder, believe deeper. Not because you owe them anything, but because you owe yourself everything. You owe yourself the chance to see what happens when you don't give up. You owe yourself the fulfillment of the dreams you've carried. You owe yourself the life you were meant to live, beyond the noise, beyond the opinions, beyond the criticisms. A comeback is not a performance, it's a transformation. It's not about proving people wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were always capable, always worthy, always equipped. Their criticism may have wounded you. It also awakens something inside you, a fire that doesn't die easily, a belief that doesn't dim under pressure, a purpose that doesn't depend on public applause. And when that fire grows, when that belief expands, when that purpose becomes your compass, your comeback becomes inevitable, because you're no longer fueled by validation, you're fueled by vision. You're no longer guided by fear, you're guided by faith. And once you